Circling back to our headline story, President Trump has penned several trade deals with ASEAN members, vowing America will 100% continue to be a strong partner for Southeast Asia for many generations. He voiced confidence as well of securing a trade deal with his Chinese counterpart at a summit later this week after negotiators from both sides reached an agreement on a framework deal that will now be sent to the leaders to approve. Mr. Trump will travel to Japan before heading to South Korea for that meeting with President Xi Jinping. Meantime, ASEAN leaders are set to meet more dialogue partners today in a bid to bolster trade and ties beyond the region. A key development from day one of the event in Kuala Lumpur was the signing of an expanded ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia. President Trump, who pressured both sides to reach a deal, presided over the event, as did the Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, who helped broker the deal. And for more on what's been happening at the ASEAN summit and what we can expect as the bloc meets for more dialogue partners today, let's speak with Sharon Seah, who is coordinator, ASEAN Study Center at the ISEAS Yusof Ishak Institute. Sharon, good to see you again. So, we were talking to other analysts, before the summit, and they were basically telling that what ASEAN really wants is trade stability and consistency with the United States. So there are 4 deals signed by ASEAN countries, 4 ASEAN countries. But I will also note that the existing U.S. tariffs all remain. So I'm wondering if they are indeed helpful at all in terms of providing that clarity this export-dependent bloc so craves.
Yeah, so I think that the kind of clarity that businesses are looking for is not going to be immediately evident. What's going to happen is that we'll continue talking, and that is President Trump's style, to continue talking, to continue making deals. So although there were 4 countries, Malaysia, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Thailand, that walked away yesterday with supposedly trade deals, but we are not clear at the moment what those details are. They do look like they are the winners out of the summit, and that the others hadn't been talking. But I think that all of this is going to continue evolving throughout President Trump's presidency. So that kind of stability, we'll have to match it, and we'll just have to roll with the punches. And what ASEAN is really doing, which is to try to improve intra-ASEAN trade, is one of those strategies to reach greater certainty and stability amongst ourselves, and then work that towards engaging more of the dialogue partners. And you see that today when the leaders, the RCEP leaders meet for a summit, that's going to be very important for ASEAN.
Sharon, I just want to go back to that, the trade deals that were signed. 3 of the 4 countries that have these so-called deals also have rare earth deposits, with indications Cambodia might as well. So I'm going to assume that this is no coincidence. And we also know that countries like the Philippines and perhaps Singapore have strategic value to the United States. So I'm wondering where it leaves members like perhaps Brunei or Timor-Leste, given Trump's penchant for bilateral deals.
Yeah, the U.S. is in a critical race for minerals to support its industries. And I think this is a very large component of what it means to President Trump to make America great again. So the countries that possess deposits, who have been doing prospecting or who have been doing their geological studies, will definitely be on top of the agenda for this particular sector. But there are other countries, as you mentioned, who have other means of pushing their strategic value. And I think for those countries, you just have to work a lot harder to make sure that they can contribute to, maintaining that ethos of making America great again.
Okay, and Sharon, one of the significant breakthroughs yesterday was the signing of the Thailand-Cambodia ceasefire agreement. But when officials call it a pathway to peace rather than a full peace deal, just how sustainable do you think the pathway really is, especially given that Mr. Trump, his approach of linking peace efforts to trade and economic incentives?
Thailand is under a great deal of pressure not to look, as if it's caving in. And the agreement yesterday is actually called a joint declaration, not so much a peace accords. The ceasefire was already agreed in July. The agreement yesterday details in steps what the two sides are to do, including moving machinery back from the border, demining along the borders, and so on. So I would say it's a long way to go. And actually, the structural root cause of the problem is still not addressed, which is the demarcation of the sovereign lines. I think that's got to be work in progress alongside the more practical means of diffusing the tensions between the two sides. So in that sense, yes, it's a pathway to peace, and it means that both sides have to commit to taking the same steps at the same time.
Okay. And Sharon, President Trump has pledged America's 100% commitment to Southeast Asia. But given past records of, enthusiasm often fading after the photo ops and signing ceremonies, just how credible is this latest pledge of long-term commitment given shifting U.S. priorities elsewhere?
I think no matter what's been said and done, the U.S. is still important in this part of the world to keep the balance of power. And we just have to take what President Trump says, at face value and continue working with him and his officials. I think the working level, back-channeling type of diplomacy is still very important at this time. And especially when the president moves away from Southeast Asia into East Asia, the kind of, attention paid. And over the next 2 years, as he continues to pursue his domestic agenda, Southeast Asia may drop lower in the ranks. So the officials have a lot of work cut out for them.
Okay. The ultimate prize, we're told, is a trade deal with China, that meeting taking place on Thursday. So does any of this, Trump being at ASEAN, carry forward into this meeting with Xi Jinping on later this week? I mean, how does Beijing see ASEAN? I mean, apart from what's been happening in the South China Sea and freedom of navigation issues, does it actually view the bloc as very important strategically and economically?
Beijing has said that ASEAN is its partner and they want to be a strong and reliable partner for ASEAN. And I think that throughout the last 2 days, there have been bilateral meetings that US President Trump has had with some of our Southeast Asian leaders. And those concerns, would have surfaced in those meetings. And I hope that he carries those concerns to the meeting with China. And as you know, the trade framework that they are negotiating will close some of the loopholes of trade being diverted through Southeast Asia. And I think when it comes to, I think Beijing is really cognizant of what ASEAN's concerns are. And I think that in that aspect, if both sides, both the US and China, could come together to address Southeast Asia's concerns, it would be a big win for us.
Okay. And Sharon, you earlier mentioned RCEP summit taking place later today. And we know that Malaysian Trade Minister has said that members will discuss ways to make RCEP more relevant, more current, even hinting at a possibility of new members. What kinds of upgrades or reforms do you think are most urgently needed right now amid U.S. tariffs and growing global protectionism?
You remember that RCEP is a relatively new grouping and a relatively new agreement. So actually, the meeting today will be very significant because it means that there will be political momentum pushing RCEP forward. And what needs to be done really, as you know, there have been member countries that actually knocking on RCEP's doors, wanting to join the RCEP. The grouping now has to think very carefully which of those countries would bring biggest value to RCEP. And if we can expand the grouping, then it actually means that RCEP will cover more of the world's trade. And this links back to the point we're talking about stability and amidst all of this trade tensions and tariffs. It means that it forms within themselves a trading club that will ensure that it gives, most benefits to its members. What else can it do? I think making RCEP known to businesses is very important. I don't think businesses know fully as yet how to tap into the benefits of RCEP if you're one of the RCEP countries trading with each other. So all of those rules, it would be helpful to make those rules, clear to the businesses or even give some capacity building to the businesses to really tap into it.
Okay, the meeting taking place later today. Sharon, thank you so much. Sharon Seah is coordinator at the ASEAN Study Center at the ISEAS Yusof Ishak Institute.